G'day Internet, welcome back to another video and to, well, another side of my shed that you don't normally get to see. This set of shelves here is usually, well, it's usually covered in shit. But I'm going to be using it today and because I want to build a new Retrobrighting rig. Now, for those that don't know, and I'm sure if you're watching my channel you probably already do, there are several methods to Retrobrighting. We've got the old school way, which is the one I tend to use, which is just the peroxide cream, wrap it in Glad wrap, stick it out in the sun. The pros of that, I guess, is that it's fairly quick. It doesn't take huge amounts of gear or anything like that. You literally need some cream peroxide, some Glad wrap, and a brush. That's kind of all what you need. The biggest downside is of all the methods, it is the most susceptible to streaking and marbling, which is definitely not a good thing. The second way is what's called the submersion method, which is essentially you get a big tub, you fill it full of diluted hydrogen peroxide, you put your item in it, and you stick it out in the sun. Now, it seems to give the most consistent results. It certainly doesn't suffer from the marbling and the streaking you do with the cream method. The only real downside seems to be that you end up with a huge tub of diluted peroxide that you need to do something with. There is another method that people call sunbrighting, which is essentially stick it out in the sun, and it, in theory, bleaches pretty much the way an old set of garden furniture may do. That's not a method I've tried, but people seem to like it. And the newest method is this thing called vapour-brighting, which is what I'm going to try and do today. It essentially is you have a chamber of some description, you put a little bit of peroxide in the bottom, you introduce UV light and heat, and the vapour in the chamber does the bleaching, well, does the retrobrighting. Now, people will swear black and blue that it is purely the UV that does the retrobrighting with the peroxide. Other people will swear black and blue it's the heat. That is definitely not an argument I'm going to get into. From my personal experience only, it is a combination of both. And so with the thing I'm going to try and set up and build today, that's what I'm going to be looking at, both UV and heat. But that's enough rabbiting on, let's get on with it. Right, so this is a full spectrum light that I got off Amazon. I think it was about $100 Australian. It's possibly complete overkill. It's rated at something like 1200 watts. Yeah, sure, I'll believe that. But it does come with this kind of chainy thing. The idea is these hook into those four corners and this here hooks to something. I just need something for this to hook to on the underside of this top shelf. Right, the first thing I want to know is what's the center of this bench? This is a 1 meter rule, and of course this is about 1.20 meters wide, but that's fine. There'll just be a few extra marks. Right. 1 meter, it's actually 1 meter 19.5. Of course it is. Did I get that right? Yeah, I did. Right. 1 meter 19.5. So that is going to be what? 59.75. Okay. 59.75 and halfway here, so that's 53, so 53 and a half, so 26.75. So that's our center right there. Digging around, I found some just eye loops. Nice. Probably not going to be using these self-tapper screws because I suspect they're going to, they may not come through. We'll see. So if I take one of these eyes and kind of center it and put it reasonably straight. Hole, yep. I want a hole there and I want a hole there. Find a drill bit suitable for these self-tappers. Right, 2 holes. Reasonably centered from where I drew my marks. Right, now I should be able to mount this from underneath. That's really funny. I've completely forgot there was a brace underneath here. And by some miracle, I just happened to drill either side of it. Right. What am I going to do? You know what I should do? I should actually ignore those 2 holes that I just drilled, because, yeah, and actually simply put a bigger hole through one side of this. Huh. Let's do that. Right, over at my bench vise. You guys really are seeing all the shitty parts of my shed today, aren't you? All right. Stop walking. I really should have center punched this. And now what I need is to find a drill bit to create a hole big enough for this to basically hook through. Okay. And in theory, I should be able to go, aha! Like that. Nice. Right, so in theory now, I should just be able to hang this there. And there it is, hanging. How does it go for height though? Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that's close enough. Nice. Right, so I've got the light plugged in and the heat mat down here. This is its little thermostat control here. Now, before I actually use this in anger, there's a little test I want to run. I'm just going to put some plain water in here, and then around here I've got a little temperature measuring thing, and I want to see that whatever temperature, so if I turn this on, the temperature's set to 35, which is actually roughly about what I want. But what I want to see is, what does that 35 there actually equal in water temp? Is it 35? Because do I trust this thermostat? No, not really. So let me put some water in here, let it warm up, and we'll see how we go. So the other thing this will allow me to do is to see how much water I think I need at the bottom of this. So this jug has a litre, and this is quite a big, okay. I'm going to need more than a litre. Okay, I let that sit there for a while and it did absolutely nothing. There might have been maybe a 1 degree temperature difference between the ambient air and the water. The thermostat is now set to 45, and I replaced the regular tap water with basically 2 litres of hot tap water. And if I take a look, it is currently sitting at 42.7 degrees. Call it 40 degrees. So what I actually want to see now is that, can the thermostat and the heat pad maintain that temperature, or at least close to it? If I can keep it between, say, 35 and 40, I think I'll be happy. Right, it's been about an hour and this has dropped all the way down to 24 degrees. So this is not doing anything. I'm going to have to come up with a plan B. Right, it is now the next day, and as you saw, my original plan didn't work out. Essentially, that heat mat just wouldn't get warm enough to do what I needed to do. So I then spent yesterday afternoon kind of hunting around online, looking for a solution that might work. But in the end, I actually ended up jumping in the car and going back out to the hydroponics place that I got the original tank from. And I managed to actually get talking to the owner of the shop. Now, he knows what he's talking about because, well, that's what he does. And I explained to him what I was actually trying to do, and that is essentially create a vapor chamber. I explained to him why. He didn't think it was weird. He was actually found it quite interesting, which was nice. And just a quick side note, whenever I go and buy peroxide or whatever it is, and people, especially cream peroxide, and people kind of give me a strange look and go, why do you need that? And I tell them what it's for, and they're usually like, oh, that's kind of cool. So yeah, quick side note. Anyway, so myself and the owner of South Pacific Hydroponics out at Fishwick started discussing a whole bunch of options and the pros and cons and all the rest of it. And there was a couple of things that we realized. One was that whatever you're trying to heat with the heat mat is essentially also trying to battle the ambient temperature. Now, when I was testing that, it was about 17 degrees or so outside. And so that's always going to be a battle, right? Even though I ended up using warm water, it just couldn't maintain the temperature I was looking for. And at the end of the day, in that chamber, I want it to be somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees. So we went around his shop and looked at different items that might be able to help this. And we came up with a plan, a solution. And I came back home with a whole bunch of not cheap equipment. I won't say how much I ended up spending, but it wasn't cheap. And I would only recommend this for people that need to do some seriously into their retrobrighting. So someone like me, for instance, who does YouTube channels, YouTube videos, I basically can't take the risk of ruining something purely for the fact that I know what the comments will look like down below. So let me show you what we came up with. Right, for starters, we won't be using this because, well, it's just rubbish. This here is a proper hydroponics tent. There is a couple of benefits that I found with this. One is that it's 99% light sealed. What that means is I can have that big bright UV light running and not have purple light pouring out of every gap in my shed and therefore getting, say, a visit from the police. The other thing is that it's actually quite well insulated, which means it keeps the heat in. It has also got a silver lining, which keeps the UV light kind of bouncing around the chamber quite well. It also has these drawstring kind of holes in it, so you can run your power cables out without letting light and heat out as well, which is a nice touch. Internally, I changed that heat mat for a proper heated tray, which also came with, it's thermostatically controlled, although I've been running this purely on max. It also comes with this kind of fibrousy pad. You might be able to see that green in there. And what you do with that is you wet it and it helps spread the heat more evenly across the tray versus just where the elements are in the tray. And that there is simply the same chamber I was using before. I was testing this last night, and with everything I've done here, the inside of the chamber holds a nice steady 38 degrees, even with the ambient temperature dropping as evening kicked in last night. And as you can see, it's actually still there's all the condensation still here. This obviously needs cleaning out before I use it with peroxide, but this is my test. Okay, we're going to have to go handheld for this. So up above, there is the light I was previously using. And then further up, if we can see it, is a heat bar. This doesn't light up or anything, but what the purpose of that is to keep the ambient temperature inside the tent nice and warm. Now it's actually time for the real test. To test, I'm going to be using the lid off this Apple IIc. This is the lid off my Parts 2C that had a dead mainboard and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it is noticeably whiter inside than it is outside, so I think this will be a good test. But the next thing I actually really have to do is mix my chemicals. And this is what I'm going to be using. We have a cleaning warehousey kind of place up north of Canberra. And this is the hydrogen peroxide they sell. Now, this is 51% peroxide. Now, let me put that into perspective for you, right? This is the cream that most people use, right? This, not the brand, but the style, right? This is 40 vol, but it is only 12%. Okay, so I don't know what vol you would call this, but well, this is 12%. This is 51%. So I'm going to be watering this down. So given this is 51%, what I'm going to be mixing is, so this is a 1 litre jug. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting in 700 millilitres of tap water, hot tap water, and then adding 300 ml of the peroxide. And I'm going to do that twice because the chamber takes 2 litres. Given I've got fairly strong peroxide here, I may as well use that to some of my benefit. And if my math is correct, which it may not be, that should give me somewhere between a 15 and 25% mixture. And because I'm not a complete idiot, not only will I be doing this outside, I will also be wearing a respirator mask. I have no idea if that's the right type, but it was the best that I could get from Bunnings yesterday. I will be wearing a pair of goggles, and I will be using some chemical gloves. So let's get mixing. All right, I don't know how well you're going to be able to hear me because I'm wearing a mask, but that's 700 mils of hot water. .300 mils of peroxide, and that will now go into the chamber, and I will do the same thing again. Right, so it's been about 4 hours. Let me put some gloves on. I'm going to have a look, because it's looking pretty good. That's remarkable. I thought this process took like 12 hours. There is a weird smudge here. Let me just go rinse this off. So yeah, like, as you can see, I've just gone and rinsed it off. There is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, there's a weird mark just here. The camera's completely blown out because of the black background, but yes, there is a weird mark just here, which kind of looks, well, to be honest with you, looks like the side of a thumbprint. Maybe I had some crap on my hands when I handled it last. But everything else has come up perfect. And actually one of the reasons I chose this was that it's got a bit of writing on it, and it's also, I noticed I left a badge on it, and they're untouched. What can I say? So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I don't know, there's maybe still a hair, and I literally just mean a hair shade difference between this and the inside. But honestly, this particular piece is looking better than my actual 2C. Maybe I'll give this a dry off and I'll swap parts. That's, yeah, I'm really happy with that. I still don't know about this weird mark down here. You can see I can see the original. It's just a weird line, like it's not marbled. I don't know what it is. Bizarre. So, Future Jason here, just very quickly. There's 2 things I noticed whilst editing this video. One was I didn't actually film putting the thing into the chamber. Sorry about that. But the main thing is the bit of footage that I had showing the original 2C case didn't really come out too well, so you couldn't really see the difference between the two. So I put another part in today. Here is a quick before photo. Now, this isn't yellow, this is orange. I don't think there's any other way of explaining that. So, it's currently in here. Now, it's been in here for close to 8 hours, and and it's had one fluid change. So let me turn this, well, let me open it up. Right, let me turn it off. And let's see how this turned out. Well, that's a mighty huge difference. So that's what the inside should look like. Well, it's the color it should look like on the inside. And that, I'm hoping you can actually see it this time, is the color that it is. Now, it's not 100%, but if you compare it to what it was, that's like a massive improvement. Strange thing is it comes, the 2C did one as well. It comes out dry. There's a few marks here where, as much as I did scrub this, it didn't, I must have missed a couple of bits. There is a bit of a mark just here, but the label has remained completely intact. That I'm going to call a win. Okay, it's still kind of dark down the side here. Right, now maybe you might be able to see it. It's still kind of dark here, but this was the darkest bit, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So what do I think about this whole thing? Well, I ended up spending a stupid amount more money than I originally intended on. I think originally when I started off, I would have been just under the about the $200 mark or thereabouts in Australian. This whole thing, a lot more than that. Am I glad I've got it though? Yes. I think this is going to turn out to be a very good and reliable Retrobrighting rig. Now, I'm still limited to a certain degree on the capacity of it. I don't know how it would go with bigger pieces like stood up on end or things like that. I know I've got one job coming up where it's got some big pieces, and I suspect I'm still going to have to do the old cream method, depending on when Nathan spins up his submersion tank next. I've actually got a few pieces that are probably going to have to go to him. But for 90% of anything that I would normally need to retrobright, this is perfect. I mean, I honestly think I could probably do, say, the back half of a classic Mac in here. I think that would work. Can I recommend going to this extreme though for the average hobbyist? Probably not. I mean, if you've got the cash, sure, but yeah, you're not going to get, let me be straight, you're not going to get that much change out of about 500 Australian dollars. Now, in saying that, I bought all this at retail. I'm sure you could save a few bucks by buying it online. But that's kind of the way it worked out, simply for the fact that it was such a fail yesterday morning that I'm like, screw it, I'm going to make this happen one way or another. But for now, that will pretty much do it. If you liked the video, click like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. As always, a massive shout out to my Patreons who are scrolling up the screen as I speak, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do stupid things like this. And if you'd like to help support the channel, there is a link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.